So as you know, we just completed a panel on blight. The second panel is on vacancy, which, as you know, can be a very different question and problem, because you could have a beautifully renovated building, but that the ground level storefront just stays empty. And so what we are excited to talk about in our second panel is what are some things that communities are doing to fill those vacant storefronts. So we will be hearing from today Sarah Bodley, who is the Executive Director of Reset, will share some information about entrepreneur engagement and social enterprise. Kevin Brown, Executive Director of the Norwich Community Development Corporation, who will talk about some of the programming that's been implemented in Norwich. Chris Edge, Economic Development Director for the town of Berlin, on the work done in Kensington Village. Dan Pesch, Director of Main Street Waterbury, on the Central Business District Investment Program. And Yvonne Shao, Director of Small Business Initiatives and Support with the City of Hartford, who will talk about activating vacant storefronts through the Heartlift program. So Sarah, if you would like to join us at the podium. Thank you.
All right. Good morning. I'm so happy to be the warm-up act for part two. As Michelle said, I'm Sarah Bodley. I'm the Executive Director of Reset Social Enterprise Trust right here in Hartford. And Michelle asked me, I think really because our work is all about supporting entrepreneurs, so I'm going to try to give a few examples and some overviews of some of the work that we do kind of from the perspective of these small businesses and startups who are looking to activate spaces. But just a tiny bit about who we are at Reset, and I really love that we've heard a lot already today about sustainability and how impact of partnerships, and a lot of this is a definite part. So our work at Reset is really all about supporting social enterprise. Just real quick overview of what that means. We essentially are here to support entrepreneurs that are trying to create impact alongside profit. We don't really work with nonprofits. We are a nonprofit, but most of our businesses are actually for-profits, but that are putting some form of sustainability right into their business model. These are just some very typical examples of what those business models can look like. There are a million different ways you can do this. But so that's really what our work is all about. We run incubators and accelerators. But I'm going to zoom into two projects that we've been a part of for the last few years, because we work a lot nowadays with both retail and food entrepreneurs, and because both of these are sectors that would be really prime for filling spaces, I want to give you some of these examples. So the first one here is the Floor Plan Initiative. This is a project that Reset is a partner in, along with a group here in Hartford called Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner, which is not actually a food business. They get that a lot, but Breakfast, Lunch, and Dinner does a whole lot of work activating spaces. And so we came together. We've been in partnership for many years with them, but came together around this project to essentially create more of a stepping stone approach for retail businesses. So we have a lot of artisans and makers. We have now within this whole initiative, there are different steps along the process to get to a brick and mortar. So what that really tangibly looks like is Reset offers a retail incubator program once a year, and we've timed that really intentionally to lead up into the holiday market season. So at the end of our incubator program, entrepreneurs get a chance to pilot in a pop-up environment, and then they have a direct line right into a seasonal market called Winter Fair. There's also the CAF, which is a pop-up space that's actually right here downtown next to the XL Center. And so what we're really trying to accomplish here is that stepping stone approach, because for a lot of these entrepreneurs, they really have to validate the market. They have to understand who their customers are, and it's really hard to do that alongside opening a brick and mortar if you've never done that before. So we do have graduates that eventually have gone on to open a brick and mortar. One is Bloom Bake Shop, who I know you're going to hear a little bit about later, because they also got Heartlift money in order to do that. So we have a handful of those. There's another company, Reboot Eco, that's now got 2 retail locations. One of our recent grads is a woodworker who now has a showroom just opening up, Coco the Great. So there's definitely a gap. That's essentially what we're trying to fill, is the stepping stone approach. The other program, kind of a similar approach, but really focused on food. So we are part of the Hartford Culinary Collaborative. Reset is one of 7 organizations here in Hartford that came together about 4 or 5 years ago now and formed this initiative where each of us provides support and services along, again, a spectrum of evolution. In the culinary space, if any of you have, food businesses in your spots, this is an incredibly costly industry to outfit a kitchen, to get through all of the licensure and everything that's required to open a commercial kitchen and not, give anybody food poisoning. You have to be so careful. And so in this program, again, we really see so many more entrepreneurs now are taking the approach of doing pop-ups, doing short-term, doing farmers markets as the first step to getting themselves ready for a brick and mortar. And so within this network, we also have access to shared use kitchen space at Hands on Hartford. And then when they're sort of ready to outgrow that hourly rental model, they can move up into the Swift factory in the north end of Hartford, where there are private commercial kitchens as well as another shared use space. But we know that these are maxed out, and there are others, statewide that are doing similar work, but there's so much more demand for this. And again, I think the leap here to brick and mortar is the goal with all of this is to try to make sure that our entrepreneurs are ready when the time comes to step into a vacant space. And I would definitely want to highlight a couple of trends and just things to watch out for. First and foremost, we heard this earlier, is awareness. A lot of the entrepreneurs that we work with may not have ever dealt with, even their local chamber. Some of them are like, oh, wow, that's a great thing to know about. And so, the more we can shed light on the opportunities that are out there. And I would offer up for all of you in the room, we are just one of so many entrepreneur support organizations in the state. I have to give a shout out to DECD, which funds both of these programs significantly. And we are one of 10 recipients statewide of that significant state money. So come to us if you have a vacancy. Know that your ESOs can also be a great resource to find entrepreneurs who might be ready. I would also say access to capital. You've heard it 1,000 times, but for the entrepreneurs as well, I think there needs to be more awareness of some of these incentive programs. And so again, the more we can partner with each other, I think that really does help to illuminate what's out there. And I would also just encourage, I think you've heard, like, this step-by-step approach in our case has shown to be really effective. And sometimes if you're able to be creative and work with the entrepreneur to help them start with, is there an opportunity to do a phased up approach, to do a rent share, to do, to work with them on financing the outfitting of that kitchen. They may not know what to ask, so of course that's where we come in, but I would just encourage everyone to be willing to use the same creativity you're using in other ways when you connect with entrepreneurs. That is my time, so this is how to reach me, and I'm happy to answer more questions later. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, Sarah did a great job staying on time, so maybe I have 1 or 2 extra minutes. Or 5 extra minutes. A lot of my teammates are here. They know every month the board gives me 20 minutes to report, and I take 50. So stay with me. Stay with me. Look, a lot of what I was going to talk about has already been said and will be said again. I'll start here, and maybe I won't even use the slides. This is a team sport. This stuff that we are all talking about is a team sport. In fact, this feels kind of like a revival in here. We're all, right? The next time we plan one of these, we should secretly invite landlords to something they don't know about, and then we're here, and then we're really putting them in the front row of the church. Right? And on that teammate point, for us, the Norwich Revitalization Program and the path to fill vacant spaces started over a beer between myself and Serge Errol from Leading Edge Construction over here. We literally bumped into each other. He said, hey, you're new on the job. What are you going to do here in Norwich? I said, I don't know. And we started contemplating things. And then, lucky for all of us in this access to capital world, American Rescue Plan dollars came into play, as well as the many great state-level programs that have already been highlighted from the DECD folks that are here in the room. That migrated to us hiring an owner's rep. I call him an owner's rep, Scott Lassard from Leading Edge, who really is the guy that provides the technical assistance and the on-site liaison to these business owners that are going to occupy these vacant spaces, telling them what's in the art of the possible. I've got a young architect who makes sure that my old ideas don't come in, Lucas Kaiser, out of Roger Williams University. And then I've got the sheriff over here, Deanna Rhodes, our director of planning and neighborhood services. When I watched the exchange between Ellen and Jonathan take place during the first panel, it was like they were channeling each of us. Because it's a team sport, and it's going to have give and take. I had this caricature drawn in my mind of me running down Main Street in Norwich in a tutu with a fairy wand with great ideas, my team trying to keep up with me, and Deanna with a sheriff's hat and a sheriff's badge chasing me down the road, telling me you can't do that in Norwich, right? But that's the healthy tension that we're all talking about doing and executing to make sure we do the right things. Next slide. Next slide. So this is our mission. I'm going to spend 10 seconds on this slide. We all hear about BRE, business retention and expansion, but really this conversation is about attraction and development. And so we've come to use the acronym BREAD to describe what we do. In fact, we end the year by giving out BREAD awards to small businesses that have moved into these vacant spaces and started to develop their business in our town. Next slide. Back one slide, sorry. 2 more seconds. Global City Norwich and Foundry 66. In addition to being an economic development corporation, in the back I have teammates Bobby Grayboy, the director of Global City, and Mary Riley, the community manager. Bobby ensures that in a city that has 30 spoken languages in the school system and a 40% non-white population, that we are lowering the barriers to entry, or just lowering the barriers to feeling a part of the community through our Global City Norwich efforts. And then Mary runs our co-work space, which doesn't do exactly what Sarah just described. People ask us all the time, is it an incubator, is it an accelerator? I say no, it's a petri dish. We throw people into office space, and then we do our very level best to kind of apply some programming and education, help them become the kinds of businesses that are ready to move out of our co-work and get out on the street. Next slide. You know, in figure skating, you have to do a double axel, you have to do a figure 8, the compulsories. I had to put that on the slide, or I wouldn't be able to speak, right? These are the 4-point approach to Main Street, and they manifest in everything that we do. But the way that we execute it is through these 4 words right here. You've heard all of them. Maybe not communication so much, maybe we'll try to end there fast, but collaboration, coordination, capital, and communication next. All right, collaboration, next slide. So like I said, we have Mary running Foundry 66. We have a whole bunch of folks that are, we are near 100% occupancy of our co-work space. That's great news. What we have to do now is join with folks like Sarah and get those folks educated, trained, and inspired to get out on the street and fill these things. And then it is a pipeline. It's not formal, but it is a pipeline that we've established, and it's things that we do. And we do that by outreach to other collaborative partners. The Southeastern Connecticut Enterprise Region sector is one of the EDDs that gets the Boost and RISE grants out, the DECD loans and grants that DECD provides. Next slide. And Bobby already talked about, there's just a list for you to stare at. We're doing, we've done 15 cultures worth of parades and things downtown in areas like the area that Jonathan described was being created in Bridgeport. And I noticed, Bobby, on the break, you tackled Jonathan to talk to him about that downtown park, because putting pocket parks downtown and creating vibrancy has a second-order effect on being able to fill a vacant space. Next slide. All right, coordination. So now we got to talk to the sheriff, right? Next slide. This is a screenshot. This is a screenshot of probably one of the most important things that we do, and it's an on-site development team meeting, and it's coordinated by Deanna Rhodes. And without me trying to find them all for you, you've got the new business owner, you've got the fire marshal, you've got the zoning enforcement officer, you've got the building official, you've got the Uncas Health District representative. Who am I missing, Deanna? So, the landlord,
fire marshals,
the fire marshal, everybody's there. So
our utility company.
Our utility company is there. Everybody is there. There cannot be any, well, I didn't know that, and told me that. We invite the landlord and the tenant to the vacant space, so anywhere between, hey, I have an idea, to, hey, I just pulled a building permit. So anywhere in that sort of spectrum. And then we're all seeing, hearing, touching, and smelling the problems and the opportunities at the same time. No, that's good. No, keep moving. Keep moving. All right, so American Rescue Plan, we would be nowhere without it, frankly. Are we already at 2 minutes left? All right, so here's the bottom line. We've activated 190 jobs and 171,000 square feet with a $23 million private match to $4 million in ARPA funds in our project sites. It's not Heartlift, it's Norlift. Norwich Lift. We're doing the same thing down there in Southeastern Florida. All right, let me go fast. That's a tracker. That's Scott's hard work. Next, that shows diligence. That's all that's about. More diligence, and I do want to highlight that highlight, which is 11 or so of the 16 awarded projects are from historically disadvantaged communities. Next, capital. We'll go right by all this, right? We talked about this a bunch. That yellow banner shows you that, 50% of it is private, but then there's 25% state, federal, all the things we've already talked about this morning. You got to stack that capital up to make this thing go. Next. This is what it looks like on the map. Everything that's colorized is an ongoing or pending project in downtown on our main street. And we're excited to have you guys come visit us at that orange box on the right-hand side of the screen in June for the CMSC Summit.
June 18th.
Next.
Mark the calendar.
And now we'll just go through some cool pictures. This is what street stuff, Triumph and Indian motorcycles looked like before. That's what it looks like now. Next. That's what the Ventura Barbershop looked like before. That's what it looks like now. Next. That's the inside, what it looked like when Carlos, his little 3-year-old, was almost sticking his hand through a jagged glass window and cutting himself. And here's what it looks like now. It's better than that even. Next. Next. Time's up. Time's up. And then just some images of other things. And let me go back to that last one real quick for a second. Just small things, right? Lucas led this pocket park effort. And I don't know what Jonathan was talking about when he said, don't say park, but that's a park. And it's a place where people now kind of naturally gather. It's kind of cool to see. Next. This is the last thing I'll talk to, and I promise I'll leave this on. Exit. We partnered with Yale Urban Design Workshop, and they've designed this park right here, bringing vitality literally in the dead center of our downtown. It's an amazing idea. There's this loneliness concern that Jennifer Leeper talked about. There's vitality and life and activity that this can help enhance. This costs more dollars than I've got in my pocket right now. And that's where things like the Community Investment Fund come into play and make things like this a reality. Next. Communication. We've established this Envision Norwich 360 collaborative webpage. We've got about 320 subscribers right now. And people say, well, that's not a lot. You got a 39,000 person city. Well, that's about 30 times the number of people that go to a town hall meeting on a Monday night. So we're at least doing something right. Next. And that's all I got. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello there, I am Chris Edge, Economic Development Director of the Town of Berlin, and I've got some cool numbers, but they don't remotely compare to those numbers. Those are impressive. We did a facade and grant program, matching grant program, 2 different steps, and it helped dramatically on our main area, which is Farmington Avenue, which is our main commercial corridor, is not actually the Berlin Turnpike, even though that has our name in it. Train station was redone, a lot has happened. The facade program has been a huge piece of the puzzle here, and you can see some of the different partners. OPM, our first one, DOT for the second one, Economic Development, Jakunsky Humes, and then Property Owners Business Owners. So basically we did grants of $50,000 per property for landscaping, facade, and similar. Now these went as much as complete redos of the property to awning, landscaping, signage. During the program, we actually modified it slightly because it was really a property owner program. Modified so tenants could come in. So we paid for half of the coffee shop sign, which is like $600. Not a lot, but it's $600. Very helpful for people who are opening up, especially with the discussion earlier about incubators, and we've seen a lot of cottage home-based businesses which have grown. So essentially the way we did it is it's a reimbursement after the fact, and the Economic Development Commission decides what is eligible, and then it goes to planning and zoning for the final okay for the look and the feel and the like. And then we put a lien on the property for 5 years of the amount of the grant. So it's not necessarily just free money. If in 5 years they take off what they did, they have to pay the loan back. The good thing is too, it does put a little bit of a hook in the situation that they're not just investing to invest, it's a long-term investment. So the piece that we thought was most important that I recommend if you can do, which is to get local expertise. Brian Humes, who is one of the principals of Jakunsky Humes, long-term, lifelong resident, he did something which is a before and after rendition, electronic, that we paid him out of the monies, which we would give to a property owner. 2 things that did. 1, engage the property in a conversation on kind of what are they thinking, what they'd like to see. 2, most commercial property owners, especially if they own one or two properties, have no idea what the hell they're doing. They don't know what the building's made of, what it should be, the roof. Brian would take a mix of modern and New England, put it into the rendition. They could then take the rendition to get quotes from contractors. The good thing about that was it went in the frame of what Berlin currently has, but also moving forward, modernizing properties. We actually have 2 cupolas on Farmington Avenue because Brian put in the drawings. Let's see, I just said that, okay. What's the next one? Okay, so here is a before and after rendition. You can see here, this was a jewelry store property on the left-hand side, pretty nondescript, not a lot going on. On the right was the actual rendition he put together, which really does a lot. There's a lot of definition to it. Again, I'm not an architect, but if you look at it, it's got some very cool features to it, including the awnings. That's what it finally looked like when it was done. That was approximately, I think, about a $70,000 project, so we reimbursed him $35,000. The good news is, with that, it ended up basically helping a new tenant come in and a second tenant to end up growing within the space. Good thing, too, is other property owners saw that and started to say, hey, maybe I should look at my own building. So, we had received $1 million in private monies, public monies from the state. We had over $1.3 million in private sector investment. I truly believe the projects were better than they would have been had we not had the grant money, because 1, Brian gave them the ideas, and 2, they might have reached a little further into their wallet to have a better project. We had approximately 50 properties that were improved, as well as 7 buildings which were multi-tenant buildings. And we might have done signage in the front where they may have either had a sign or it was one of those things that you kind of put up a sign as they change and really doesn't look very good. The big thing again was property owners saw what their neighbors are doing and wanted to find out more about it. Benefits. Existing tenants more likely to stay in place at improved building. Vacant places more likely to be leased once improvements are made. And also, too, if someone is looking to purchase a property, having this program in place was helpful to get them to make the investment. Both Michelle and myself were up at the Capitol the other day. There is something, House Bill 5478, which gives the Community Investment Fund the ability to do things at a local level. We were pushing the facade on improvements. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but if you have a legislator and I mentioned to them the fact that they're talking about a revolving loan fund, I'm one of one. The idea of a revolving loan fund just gives me a headache. If you did something similar to what we're talking about with a matching grant fund, you still have the oversight, you have the lien, and the town is coordinating what does and doesn't happen. It'd be a great use of the funds because right now OPM has decided they don't want to do these anymore. They want to do shovel-ready projects, which is a great concept. Towns don't have money to make projects shovel-ready. So anyway, thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it. Again, I'm Chris Edge, and thank you very much.
Morning, everyone. So you find that there's a lot of similar themes throughout the room today, even just in informal conversations. You'll see a lot of those same themes in this presentation. I won't go too in depth on those, but I really wanted to kind of just underscore the fact that we're all dealing with a lot of the same issues. And if we're all dealing with a lot of the same issues, there are a lot of similar solutions we can all take. So those of you who are, there we go. Nope. But you sat through 8 people. Sorry.
Dan!
I know. Well, I'll introduce myself. So my name is Dan Page. I'm the director of Main Street Waterbury. For those of you who know Carl Rosa, who's the field services director here, he had that position for a number of years. 17 years, Carl? Where's Carl? Carl, he's back there. 17 years, maybe a little bit more than that, and we're in our 20th year as a program now, and going through a lot of marketing, branding, adaptations, and trying to meet the needs of the city of Waterbury in 2024. I was just in a meeting this week, pre-COVID in thank you very much. Pre-COVID, we were at 110,000 people in the city of Waterbury. We were at 110,000 people for a very long time. We're at 114,000 people now. And so that's over the course of 4 years, a little over 4 years. And so that's a rapid population increase. And so from our perspective, in downtown Waterbury, we view that as people center, to bring all of these new residents that we are adding from a lot of times New York, a lot of the boroughs of New York, a lot of Bronx residents moving into the state of Connecticut, and a lot of them coming to the city of Waterbury. We're looking at this as a time to reinvent our downtown to be a center for residents coming in looking to do things like shop and get their hair cut and go down and do business. And so we feel this is a very big opportunity for us to kind of take us to the next level. So similar to a lot of you in the room, we have challenges. We have empty storefronts, we have vacancies. Downtown is over about 70 acres, more than that, probably 70, 80 acres. So it's large, but it's small enough where programs that we implement will have a lot of change and a lot of return on investment. So again, holistic's been thrown around a lot this morning, but from a holistic approach, we looked at our infrastructure in downtown Waterbury. It actually was pre-COVID, and we found that throughout downtown, our major arteries, East Main Street has the University of Connecticut and Palace Cedar, and Bank Street and Grand Street have municipal buildings, court buildings, and a lot of private attorneys' offices and the like. And our infrastructure was really, really old. So we had, you can see these two pictures here. Actually, prior to taking this position at Main Street, I was the director of the Waterbury Development Corporation, and I was overseeing these projects. We've had pipes from and water mains from 1890 underground, serving our major hospital in the city. And so, looking at downtown revitalization from kind of the 10,000 foot view, we wanted to prioritize what our investments were going to be so that we could start filling our vacancies. We had some conduit underground downtown that was carrying electrical lines that was wooden. So that tells you the age of some of this infrastructure, and a lot of our infrastructure underground was being held together by the dirt that was sort of compacting it. So we replaced it all. And all of this that you're seeing on the screen has been replaced, and now we're going to the next step of above ground infrastructure upgrades. So with those upgrades, we still have vacant spaces. You saw the first slide. So post-COVID, how do we use this as an opportunity? To be quite honest with you, how do we use this as a reset button for us to show that we are really reinventing ourselves as we come out of the COVID fog? So we used a matching grant program with American Rescue Plan Act funds. We had a $1.5 million of funds. It was a collaboration between the City of Waterbury, the Waterbury Regional Chamber of Commerce, and Main Street Waterbury to implement this. It's really designed to make these spaces vanilla box ready, but we had to pivot. And so we realized over the first year that wasn't generating enough activity, and we added programs to offer business consulting, to offer marketing funds, to offer even cover some payroll costs for new startup businesses that will locate downtown. And so we all like to show our before and afters. We're all so proud of what we're doing. And you can see this here, and Carl again can tell you, this property on the left was vacant on the bottom floor for over 10 years. I would say probably 15 years. On the right is the product of one of our ARPA grant programs, and you can see how big and beautiful those windows are. And we're excited to see that the lights are actually on tomorrow. It's the first day of the business opening up downtown, and so we're super excited about this. But please come talk to me after too if you have any questions, and we can be happy to talk to you more. Thanks.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I don't know what time it is. I'm Yvonne. I'm with the City of Hartford. We do have a facade program too, but we only have before photos now, and we don't have after photos. That is why I'm only talking about Hartlift today. So my goal today is to really talk about the infrastructure and how we really set up the program, and then talk a little bit about the impact of the program that have had on the Hartford, especially downtown Hartford community. So this program was announced by the Brown administration back in December of 2021, and it is done, originally it was a $6 million ARPA allocation to really fund the renovation storefront activation for downtown Hartford. Because at that time, if you have been here in Hartford, Pratt Street was practically, there were only 1 or 2 storefronts that were actually open. The rest of them were vacant, and there weren't a lot of businesses on Pratt Street. So at the time, the Broden administration really wanted to center around Pratt Street area and then expand the Heartlift footprint across the downtown area. So we have structured the program as a public-private partnership, which is really the key, because sometimes government can be very, very slow in terms of funding, especially disbursements of funds. But when there is a private partner that has the infrastructure and the structure in place that can really get the program going a lot faster, it is usually a better way. So this program is structured and it is administered through the Hartford Chamber of Commerce. Just wanted to give a shout out to my colleague back there from the Chamber of Commerce, Paige Burchett. She has been wonderful in managing all the projects in Heartlift. So we generally provide guidelines, compliance, and everything that you need to comply with ARPA rules. And as a city, we want to make sure that no money is going to be recalled back once it's already been spent. So we have the program actually expanded twice over the past couple of years. First, it was only downtown projects that were eligible for this program, and it was only eligible for vacant storefronts. And then it expanded once into neighborhood commercial corridors, and then expanded another time into existing businesses that are in downtown area. And actually, I'm going to share one story later about the existing business and the impact Heartlift program has already had on it. So far, we have $13 million allocated under ARPA to Heartlift program overall. That has doubled the original amount that we have given the success of the program, and that was the administration's decision. We have committed 73 projects, and most of them are under construction right now. And we will be activating, by the time all the projects are done, over 269,000 square feet. And we will be creating over 700 jobs. And out of the 73 projects that we have already committed, 48 are women or minority-owned businesses. And you can see $8.3 million we have already committed, and right now the number of private investment leverages is growing because there's always more in construction costs as the construction project started. So right now we stand at an estimated $6.5 million. So real quick, Home Bake Shop came out of Reset from Sarah. They were a startup business there, and they really baked their idea at Reset. The site that they had it is on Pratt Street. That site has been vacant for decades, and so they really took the kitchen counter space. They didn't really do much of a structural change of the space, and they just really designed the counter, and now it is one of the most successful coffee shop in downtown areas that you can really see. And then another story, Sunberries, as I said, they're an existing business. They have been in Hartford for over 10 years. Originally, they were the one that were really advocating for existing businesses should be receiving the Heartlift money as well, because it will create an impact. And it did. So they received the Heartlift money for about $150,000, and they did their renovation. The renovation cost about, I think, $400,000, but the revenue of the business, as we heard last year, compared to before renovation, have tripled. So that is really a prime example of what you can do through a downtown vacant space revitalization program for existing businesses and also entrepreneurs that want to grow their businesses into a brick and mortar location. Am I done? Okay. So I would be negligent if I don't tell everyone to take a walk on Pratt Street and see all the projects that are ongoing. Almost the entire Pratt Street is funded some way, shape, or form in Hartlift. And you'll see the businesses that have opened. Urban Lodge have opened after this conference. If you want to grab a beer, go there. If you want to grab lunch, go to Sunberry's. If you want coffee, go to Bloom Bake Shop. And if you want to buy anything Hartford related, go to Hartford Prince. It is all on Pratt Street. So welcome everyone to Hartford, and let's take a look at what Hartlift has done to Hartford.
If our panelists can come up and have a seat, we'll start to field some questions from the audience.
I want to blind them.
Have a seat, everyone. Ross is your closest to me. I'm just going to pass that to you.
All right. Questions? I think, Kristen, you have our first question. Making me walk all the way to the back.
I actually have two, but I won't be greedy. I'll ask one and then come back around. This question is actually, I think all of you can touch on this. From time to time, at Connecticut Main Street Center, we get asked a lot about pop-ups. I'm curious, what is your professional experience or perspective on activating pop-ups in vacant storefronts versus, investing more money in a permanent business or something like that?
In Berlin, we've actually had a handful of pop-ups that went within existing businesses. We have found out most recently that our Planning and Zoning Commission is specific on where you can hold it. Is in a traditional spot where you'd see pop-ups, yes, great. We're looking now kind of long-term at a vacant building that we're potentially looking to do pop-ups, so we're going to be looking at it moving forward because in my mind, that's the biggest area of growth, as pretty much everyone has said, which is I don't have the ability to launch into a storefront. Is there any assistance to get me there? And pop-ups is a great way to do it if you can get a couple different folks together into one spot, cut the cost, and even too, if it's a pop-up, it can be raw space. People are there for the products, the experience, and
I'll talk to the past, the present, and the future. In the past, before I even got to the organization, our co-work space had 4 or 5 retail spaces intentionally for pop-ups. I think I can say, and Mary can spackle my answer and make it right from the back of the room, that it was okay, but it didn't really provide the kind of oomph that we thought it might. Those pop-up spaces now have become permanent tenants, but in a different kind of a way. Sort of this is that petri dish versus incubator thing. They aren't responsible for being out on the street in their own retail space. They're still members of our co-work, but they've got a street-facing storefront that they can operate as a member instead of under a lease. So that's a quasi-retail situation that we have going on right now. That's the past into the present. Presently, from some of that ARP expenditure that we talked about, we've got a couple of spaces on Lower Broadway. It's a short stretch of road right in front of our city hall, and those are aching for a pop-up use. And I think that there's a place where we can blend demand and need, right? We want to activate that space. There are folks that want to test their ability to sell their product or service, but Deanna's giving me the evil eye right now, so I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that thing that I just said. So that's some capacity that we have right now in the city to do it. Looking forward in the future, that very futuristic but very expensive Yale design that you saw in what we call Jubilee Park downtown, it's got sort of a hybrid of the container van capacity facing Lower Broadway Street with literally pop-up kind of transient use for retail.
Yeah, I think the CAF actually is a great example of this, which was on my slide, and the retail side. It's not a reset program, it's our partner breakfast and dinner behind that, but I think it's a good example in that it actually started more as a very temporary situation and has just continued to extend. So I think for me, it can be an on-ramp to a longer-term opportunity. But the other thing is, if it's not, like you said, I think there's a lot more even consumers are looking for those kind of like, where's the hub that I can go and maybe see a different mix of businesses at different times of the year. So, you know, we've seen like at Parkville Market here in Hartford, they offer, entrepreneurs can come for a one-day pop-up, and we've had some of our graduates have gone and sold out within hours at those pop-ups. So to the space piece, I think the seasonality is important. We do educate our entrepreneurs in our retail program especially on like what it takes to operate a successful short-term pop-up. It does not happen easily. They have to be willing to, you know, if they don't have a lot to spend on building out, like how can they leverage what they have, you know, in their garage? Like how can you build out a really unique and interesting environment to make it attractive, whether it's for you know, the really short stuff, the week-long things, probably not the best fit, but for a month or 3 month or 6 month pop-up, I think that as long as the entrepreneur really understands what they're signing up for too, and can make that as purposeful as they can, and make it an experience, it can really work. The experience part is huge. I think that's, you know, how do you do that? It's depending on the brand and kind of everything that goes into it. But people want to show up for, and you know, not just to buy now, but to have a buy, right?
Just want to mention one cool success story. So we had a woman who, she loved to make charcuterie boards, did a pop-up within a home decor store. She now has a place that literally, it's BYOB. You can make your own charcuterie boards called the Gathering Board. So literally it is experiential. So she has her own business, she has a retail front. So she literally went from, hey, I'd love to do this, to this is an experiential business. So I can say without a doubt, the pop-up concept can launch into amazing ways. And I really couldn't even spell charcuterie, and but it's one of the cooler businesses we have because again, people want that experience.
I'll very briefly add to, lights on are better than lights off. So if you have some of these vacancies, activate them. Activate them any way you can. Obviously, with everything that was just said, making sure that it's something that's going to be a good use for the downtown. But lights on are better than lights off.
I think this question is mostly for towns with storefronts, with uses above the storefronts. Just wondering if most of your buildings have housing above, and if so, are you finding it hard to attract market rate housing, or is it a mix of market and affordable?
I'll speak from Waterbury. So we have a mix right now. We're in the process of continuing to change some of our upper floor uses, so we don't have a ton of residential right now. It's something we're looking to add more of. I'd mentioned the population increase in the city as a whole. We're trying to find units for folks to come in. It's a mix, and really in Waterbury, market rate and affordable are sort of neck and neck. But we're finding a ton of interest in the apartments that are really fitted out nicely. Waiting lists in a lot of cases. So there's a tremendous increase, and I know housing on a state level is massive push right now. We have a ton of interest in our residential units that we do have, and we're looking to add to those.
Most recently, we have a brand new ground-up development right next to the train station that's all been market rate. But like a lot of suburbs, we have a number of buildings which has the retail on the bottom floor, apartment above, and we are seeing a lot more interest in that. The biggest issue, I think, is how to make it work from a regulatory side, whether it's fire marshal, etc. But I think definitely we're looking at more opportunities on that mix. I know in the town of Berlin, probably since about 2019, any residential developments have to have a minimum of 20% affordable, which is a big turn from where we were just 5 or 10 years ago.
And you guys ever been to the Toaster out in Phoenix, Arizona, the stadium where the Cardinals play? Well, it's just flat and easy to develop on. We live in New England. Outside of the Toaster, they've got this cool multi-use community built because they were just able to, white sheet of paper, just build it like they wanted it, right? We are dealing with very difficult situations, and honest to God, I'm not making this up. As I'm sitting here listening to this question and answer, the CWPM waste truck drives by, and I look at Lucas and Deanna, because we have a building built in 18, I don't know. And now we have 42 market rate apartments going in there, and we've got to dispose of the trash properly. And it wasn't built north of the toaster in Phoenix, Arizona in optimal conditions. So it's tough. It's tough to do. On the good news side of it, the demand in Eastern Connecticut, largely because of the growth of the subbase and the number of engineering jobs and other jobs that are going in there, have created the need and the interest that both of these gentlemen just talked about. And thanks to Julie and Shippo, we've got up and down our main street, 1, 2, 3, and potentially a fourth building that are coming alive and will provide downtown above first floor retail, multi-use apartment living conditions. And then on the wait list side of things, Panema, which I think Mike showed, it's 400 and some units and there's a waiting list. So good things are happening on the housing front. Right? Nothing's happening.
I can talk briefly about the Hartford model. Usually when there is housing involved, we do have a division of housing in our city, so our housing division handles most of the either affordable housing development or anything that's in conjunction with commercial first floor storefront renovation projects. So what we have been, because we have encountered this kind of question from property owners as we were rolling out the facade program there, oh, can we use this money for residential units as well, because that technically counts as facade. But what City of Hartford does is really is through my division, it is strictly commercial, but we do refer those applicants to housing unit where they do have either home funds, either vouchers, either some kind of CDBG funds that they can use to really renovate those residential residential units on the second, third, fourth floors. So that's what we do.
I have a question here. I know there's great things happening with Heartlift and yielding great results, and I know Dan, you're working very hard with interfacing with the downtown Waterbury building owners and property owners, and Kevin, you want to bring the landlords to our revival meeting this morning. But talk a little bit about the interface between the landlords and the property owners with your ideas and the programs that you're trying to convince them to engage with you for uses in their buildings. And what have the challenges been? What have they embraced it, or are they pushing back or indifferent? How are you dealing with all of that?
Yes, we are. So who wants to go first? I'm sure we all can. Yeah. So I have found in my experience that there are some folks who get it, some folks who want to get it, and some folks who need convincing. All right. So even on programs that we're offering, which is essentially funds to revitalize their spaces and make their spaces vanilla box ready, there's even questions that come to us under those circumstances. And so it goes back to communication that was mentioned earlier today. It's a constant communication. It needs to be a constant communication with trust as really an underlying piece of that communication. So it's developing relationships, continuing those relationships, and making sure that the property owners know that really what we want as a municipality, as a Main Street program, is to see the spaces activated, which should be a win-win for the property owners, for us, and for the tenant that they land. So I find that it's some folks require more constant attention than others, but it's a continual transactional relationship, and really if they succeed, we succeed. If we succeed, they succeed, and trying to translate that message to them in a way that they can that's palatable to them, and having them realize that as a municipality or as a Main Street program, really we're out for success collaboratively.
Well, I look at my position as pretty simple. How do I take somebody's client, come to Berlin, invest, and make money? So a lot of times it is the opposite situation for me, which is landlord comes in and says, hey, I have this wonderful tenant, what do you think? So for me, over my 9 years of doing this, a lot of it is education on the municipal side. Planning and zoning is a great example. So scared of school kids. There are no school kids in apartments right now. The other piece is, how do you fit things? I like to look at a zoning book as a fluid document. It needs to be. Because everybody wants to do axe throwing and escape rooms. They're not in the zoning book. Tell me I'm wrong. So how do you get a planning and zoning commission to work with you? And I understand, you want to be reasonable. You don't want to put things that don't belong, but there's concepts that a planning and zoning or a planner have never thought of. So it's really figuring out how you find that mix to make that sales pitch. You have some wins, you have some losses, but being able to do that with the facade program, it was kind of funny. So we were coming to the end of our money and we thought we were going to be using it up, and within $10,000 we had like 6 more requests. So we didn't have any money left. So from that situation it was great because it built upon itself, which is why I want some more money. And I think to a large degree our main property owner, which is Newport Realty Group, which is owned by Mark Lovely out of Southington, one of the largest home builders in Connecticut, built a brand new building, bought a building and renovated it. People are following in his footsteps. They realize that somebody who has that much success with houses is doing this. There's an opportunity on our Farmington Avenue, on our Main Street, and that's really been the big thing for me, on having the people in the private sector who are willing to tell the story for me.
Yeah, it's all been said. I'll just give 2 examples of all that's been said. So on the one end of the spectrum, you know, there are landlords, hypothetically speaking, of course, who are holding a grudge from 60 years ago when the municipality did something that they didn't like in their family, and now they own the property and they're still holding that same grudge. Right? What is that really about? You know, I don't know, but it's real. For those that don't know me, I served in Iraq a number of times, and I'll never forget having tea with some Turkish leaders in northern Iraq who, for all the right reasons, right, didn't forget that the land was taken from them many, many times over. And here I was having a modern day conversation with these sheikhs, these tribal sheikhs, and they didn't want to hear about my cool American ideas about how we could invest in their community. They didn't care, because in 1600, and in 1800, and in 1991, they were disenfranchised over and over and over again. The point of all that is you have to gain trust. You have to communicate with those folks and gain or regain trust. And it's probably not in the economic development handbook that's one of the things you do. It's not part of the capital stack. It's not part of the regulatory regimen of building or structure. You got to build trust with people. That's on that side. But then there's the people you don't have to build trust with. They fly into town, they say, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to invest X number of dollars in that asset, but I hope you keep up with me, because I'm trusting you to keep up with me and be my partner, because I'm willing to take this risk. And you got to be able to saddle up with those folks as well and help them succeed. And those are both really hard things to do.
I'm in a shoreline community.
I'm a shoreline community, and you know, things happened like from May until the end of September. And so we have a number of, I call them blighted, but they're vacant places that were businesses way back, and they've been 10, 20, 30 years vacant. But getting a business in a community that doesn't have it all year round, it's very hard economically to do that. What kind of suggestions do you have for that kind of vacancy issue?
Which one of us is from Middletown? Anybody from Middletown out there? I actually made that note in my notebook to myself while we were going through this whole thing. We live in a Four Seasons environment here in New England, right? And I don't know that we have the physical infrastructure to do it, frankly, in Norwich. But I can't help but think about that space, and I don't know what to call it. Maybe some of the audience does. It's indoors. It's got indoor facing and a concourse, and it's got shops, 7 or 8 shops off Main Street. Can't think of the name or number. The little Main Street Market, right? That's a way. Now, I can see the place you're describing. You can't do that, right? With what you're talking about, but it's tough, and I think that creatively, because I only wrote it down 20 minutes ago, and I don't know if we can even do it. Something that creates indoor-facing access to multiple shops, pop-ups or otherwise, is a way. Beyond that, I don't have any good ideas.
Well, I think one thing that's coming up for me throughout some of these questions is that entrepreneurs are also very creative and collaborative. In many cases, I think we've seen a lot of very organic partnerships emerge with entrepreneurs who maybe need a spot to, you know, if you're an e-commerce business and you've outgrown your home, you might need a spot where you can be packaging and manufacturing. So it's not the the cool walkable storefront that you necessarily want, but it's something to do. And I'm not going to claim that there are enough of those to really make it, you know, a gravitational pull, but I think that like acknowledging that there might be other opportunities. And another side, and this again depends on the infrastructure very much, but kitchen, like if there is an underutilized kitchen that a food business can come in and have a ghost kitchen, you know, catering, and again, shared use spaces, like I think some of those more creative solutions, which definitely take the community building, the like understanding kind of who's out there, but we've definitely seen entrepreneurs willing to kind of figure that out on their side if the right opportunity arises. So maybe a long shot, but I think just leaning into that creativity as well is worth noting.
I would say if you can get any of the landlords on board to look at maybe home-based cottage businesses that maybe aren't necessarily dependent upon the tourism. I think if you look at a number of the folks that have grown in Berlin, and we've seen an amazing, I want to say we did 94 ribbon cuttings, it was over 22,000. I want to say of that, like 62 are women-owned and operated, and probably 40 of them launched from either work for somebody else or a home-based business. They aren't launching quickly, but that may be an opportunity that somebody may not have thought of. Hey, I can be down there. Again, you need a landlord who's willing to take a couple bucks versus a long-term lease. But as you had said, if it's been vacant for years, it's tough to do something with it. And I think entrepreneurs really are still growing our economy, because even Pratt & Whitney was an entrepreneur at some point in the garage. Giving them an opportunity to do their business somewhere and see if it does make sense. Maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe it's a couple businesses. Not always the best thing for a landlord, but then again, if the lights are on, there's an opportunity. I was actually talking to one of the, who it was the other day, a politician that said that space was vacant for like 5 years. They put their political headquarters there 3 months later at least, because people saw activity there. So I'm thinking the same thing, which is see if you can reach into the community. And a lot of what I'm finding too is people have a love of something, they create it into something, and again, it may be that first step and create kind of an entrepreneurial culture. Maybe it becomes something of a revolving door. Hey, look, we have different businesses, maybe it's a couple businesses, but that's a way to kind of get it going. There may be an entrepreneurial spirit already there that just doesn't have an outlet, and that may be the way to get there. Again, you want to work with the town and other folks, but people have great ideas, and I think, as you said, give people an open space. They can do amazing things, especially, again, if their business is creating something, already they're a step ahead of most of us.
One more question.
Good morning. My question is, we've benefited from ARPA dollars. Many of the programs that you spoke about had the benefit of having millions of dollars of ARPA funds. Going forward, those ARPA funds are going to cease within the next year or two. Going forward, what are your thoughts, what are your plans on how you are going to engage your municipal leaders and those decision makers to invest, to continue the millions of dollars that are necessary to keep the programs that you are operating and want to expand to, keep them vibrant and moving forward?
Thank you, Alderwoman Hayes from Norwich. In Norwich, what I'd like for us to do is perhaps take into account, I mean, look, the rumble occurred in the room as Mike Andriotti was describing a TIF district, and we've had many side conversations with our team that's here from Norwich that we've got to get over the hump politically and believe that the only way you can have a vibrant downtown is if you are willing to make concessions. And concessions is an ugly word, but you can't stand back and say, yeah, you can develop here, it's going to cost you, 42 mils on your investment, and then they walk away. You have to be willing, I think, to make concessions, and I'm playing and having fun with it, but for you as our alderwoman or any other elected official that you might approach or you are in this audience, I think you have to be willing to make those concessions that actually are inviting to downtown developers. If we're not going to be given money by the federal government, And if we don't want to give actual bonded, funded taxpayer money as a municipality, I mean, there's got to be some give in the system somewhere. And I think for us specifically, taking a look at this TIF financing is really
A couple things. One, to build off of that, we went from a 3-year tax abatement to now a multi-tiered 3, 5, 7, 10-year tax abatement policy in Berlin. Now again, we are not a distressed municipality, so we can only do tax abatements on new. Essentially, the more you spend, the more you get. I happen to come from the private sector. That's the way my brain works. Is it the end-all be-all? No, but we're also competing against 3 surrounding communities that have enterprise zone in Britain, Middletown, and Marion. We've maybe made, you don't get the same tax break long-term, but when you're done, you end up at a 31 mil rate. That's one thing we've done particularly with that, and we actually just did our first ever tax abatement on both the commercial and residential for 10 years, because we've always been averse to that. But we realized with where we are right now is, I do this nicely, it's the devil we know versus the devil we don't. How's that? Because we're not at 10% yet. The other piece is what we've done is we've looked at connections. We've used a lot of DOT connectivity funds to do sidewalks, to be able to get people from the neighborhoods to the commercial district. Now, again, is it going specifically to benefit the district? No, but people can walk and bike and get there safely. And I know in a community like Berlin where people want to be active until literally they pass away. That's what we've done. I want to say we've now applied for probably our 5th. And it started literally from how do you go from town hall to the coffee shop, which you couldn't do when I started. It's a small piece, but I think it's figuring out where the different resources that are out there. Because yes, we can try to create new, but as we know, government moves slowly, especially in Hartford. But use programs like that to figure out, okay, great, yeah, we've got a new apartment building or a new complex or a new subdivision. How do we get them down there without taking their cars? And we found those connectivity funds have been tremendous. And as long as they keep offering, we're going to keep trying to get more money from them.
Very, very briefly, we're treating our COVID funds as investments. So we're hoping that although the funds are going to run out very shortly, that the investments we're making currently are going to pay dividends way beyond the funds expiring. So that's the way I treat that. And it's a common question, so it's fair to ask the question, and I think the proper response that we're taking is the dollars we're spending right now, we don't expect the plus side of it to end when the dollars expire. We're hoping that they're going to pay dividends well into the future for us.
Real quick, I think right now we do understand, at least with us, a lot of ARPA funding is really have already been fully committed, and we are looking at alternative sources like maybe through the EDA, maybe through HUD, maybe through the state, and we're hoping that we can find further funding sources that can really just further the mission of these programs that we have already created.
Thank you. So before we take our next break, I'm going to let you know what's going to happen next, because we're going to corral you while you're eating cookies and drinking coffee to the third phase of our programming.